Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be telling a paranormal story time about the haunted house that my aunt used to live in. So I live in Las Vegas. I live in like the Henderson area, but she used to live in North Las Vegas. And it was kind of far away from it's here in Las Vegas. And this house that my aunt grew up, didn't grow up in, but lived in, was very, very haunted. Well, I believe there is more than one spirit, a female spirit, and that's the spirit I'm going to talk about today. But before I get into this story time, let me just describe my aunt. I'm going to call her Anne. So I'm just going to call it Aunt Anne. So Aunt Anne is that aunt that everybody has in their family where, you know, she's always putting on makeup, and she would always kind of put it on kind of patchy and wrong, but you know, she was that aunt that was always feeling herself. She also used to like buy a lot of things that she didn't need. She was kind of like the cool aunt, so to say. She would always like, you know, do our hair, buy us like toys that we didn't need, take us to the swamp meet. She was just that type of aunt that, you know, you see memes about. So every time we would go over to her house, we would see everything dead, whether it be plants or animals. For example, going to her house and seeing dead mice and rats. My Aunt Anne wasn't the cleanest person, but I really believe that this had to be because her house was so haunted. She would always have dogs, and they would end up like dying in the backyard. There'd be dead birds in her backyard and front yard. There'd be dead bugs everywhere. And yes, she was kind of a hoarder, but seeing that many dead animals, it was just really sad. Even the plants in her house that she had in her kitchen would just die. And so being in that house automatically gave me a sense of discomfort and anxiety because you always felt like you were being watched. So she had this 2-story house, and I remember you would climb the stairs, and to the left of the stairs was her master bedroom. The other side of the stairs, which was the right side, if you turned right, there was a guest room and the room that my grandmother would stay in. And I remember specifically this guest room was pretty big, and my cousins and I and whatever kids were in town, my Aunt Anne would always, you know, have kids over or babysit kids from people that she knew. We would always go in that guest room because it was isolated from the adults that were downstairs, and you know, kids like to go in a room and play with each other. And I remember specifically my cousin and I and my sister Andrea and I, we were jumping on the bed, and I remember being on the bed and looking over the edge while I was in the center of the bed and seeing like a little black shadow like pass on the floor and kind of disappear. And in that moment, all the kids stood quiet, and we all looked at each other like, did we really see that? And I remember like all of us screaming like at the top of our lungs, screaming bloody murder, and all of us booked it down the stairs. You know, I'm surprised that none of us fell over each other. And I remember, you know, some of, you know, our aunts or uncles would be like, oh no, it was nothing. And my parents would always try to calm us and say it was nothing, but now that I'm older, I recognize that they had a very fearful look on their face. So, one other time, my Aunt Anne, she had a couple of dogs at this moment in time, and 2 of the dogs ended up mating and having a litter of puppies. Me as a little girl, I understood that things died in her house, and part of it, yes, was because she didn't really watch over things. She really didn't. She was, you know, off in her own little world, my Aunt Anne. So being a little girl and caring for animals the way I still do, I insisted sleeping over. And I remember my Aunt Anne, you know, told my parents, yeah, it's fine that Alex sleeps over, you know, no biggie. And the main reason I wanted to sleep over, though I was terrified, was because I just wanted to protect those puppies. The lower level of my Aunt Anne's house, it was the kitchen, and then you take like 3 steps down, and that was like the living room. And that's where she kept the crate with the mother dog and her puppies. It was getting dark, and I could feel the anxiety setting in, and I always felt like I was being watched. Always felt that. And I just remember, you know, not wanting to go to sleep and being scared. So I remember I got those puppies and I had like 2 of them with me, and I fell asleep. And I fell asleep with them like next to me on the couch. Well, next thing you know, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm woken up because I heard something. And as I'm trying to come out of this slumber, I hear a woman's voice, a woman I do not recognize, softly calling my name, Alex. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't my Aunt Anne's daughter. Let's call her, oh my goodness, coming up with names, it's so hard. Part of the reason why this is so hard is because I don't talk to my Aunt Anne anymore, but I don't want to, like, you know, set off an alarm. So let's just call her daughter, I'll just say her daughter. Well, anyways, Aunt Anne, I knew it wasn't her. I knew it wasn't Aunt Anne's daughter. In that moment, I remember trying to feel for the dogs for comfort, and they weren't with me anymore. And so I'm really scared, and here I hear the voice again, Alex. And it sounded like a very calm woman's voice. And I wanted to see, and something told me not to see, but I decided to look over the couch to see at the top of those 3 little stairs that lead into the living room. And my eyesight's a little blurry, and I'm still getting out of this, you know, slumber. And I remember looking at the top of those 3 steps and seeing the faint outline of, like, I guess a woman. And it was white, but the outline kind of had a blue hue to it. And I acknowledged it. I didn't say anything, and in that moment, I just went back to sleep. I don't know how I did that, but in the moment when these things are happening, I've always had this like amazing gift to stay calm, because I feel like if I give it attention, all hell would break loose. So the next morning I remember waking up and thinking about it and being upset that, you know, the dogs weren't with me. And I know that was because my Aunt Anne had put the dogs back in their crate thing with the mom. I just remember, I don't know how this came up, but before my Aunt Anne moved out of that haunted house, I remember being old enough where my grandmother and my aunts and uncles would talk about the weird experiences that they went through in that house. And I remember my Aunt Anne's daughter told me that one day she was babysitting and she was downstairs in the living room and she was with someone else. I can't recall who, but I remember her saying that she heard footsteps upstairs even though there was no one else there. And she heard the doors to her master bedroom, like my Aunt Anne's master bedroom, slam. And they like ran out of the house and they just heard like this loud booming voice just like yell. Another time I remember my Aunt Anne said she had something to give me. And to be honest, like her master bedroom was always a wreck. Like she would just hoard things, buy things at the swap meet that she didn't need. You know, it was just like, she was that type of person. But, you know, being a little girl, you loved that because everything she had, like, you could, you know, use. So I remember going in her master bedroom, and I always hated her master bedroom. It felt so eerie. It felt like you were always being watched in there. And I remember going into her master with her, and as we were turning the corner in her master to go into the master bathroom, in the corner of her room next to her bed, I could have sworn I saw a woman kind of like in a cream colored like blouse and like dark hair, kind of like medium length hair, kind of like stare at me like this. She was like, her back wasn't entirely turned to me, but as I was walking in, I saw this woman's head turn like this. And I just remember freaking out, but not wanting to say anything because my Aunt Anne was that type of aunt to just dismiss a lot of things. And I just remember going into the bathroom with my Aunt Anne and she gave me some perfume. But those were some of the occurrences that happened in her house, and that was the female spirit that resided in that house. There was also a really, really, really bad male spirit that was the size of a midget, to be honest. It was the size of a little person, and this one was pure evil and did terrible things to my family and I. So if you would like to hear about the other spirit that resided in that house, let me know, and I'll make the second story time about my Aunt Anne's haunted house. All in all, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. Those were just some of the memories I could recall from the top of my head. And And I hope that by talking about this, weird things don't happen. So until next time, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys later. Mwah! Bye!